I slept outside the house that was stolen from me, until my grandpa came and evicted my family. Hi, I'm Masha's, 22 and 5 months ago, my parents locked me out of the house my grandfather gave me, and gave it to my sister instead. I've been living in my car ever since. Quiet, ashamed, sleeping in front of what should have been my own front door. Until the morning my grandfather caught me there, curled up in the driver's seat like a stray animal, and that's when everything exploded. I've never been the confrontational type. I'm the keep the peace guy, the quiet one, the background character, the guy who gets passed over, ignored, talked over, and still says, "It's fine." I guess that's why no one even flinched when my parents decided to steal the house my grandfather gifted me for my 22nd birthday and hand it to my sister. Instead, Gabriella is 6 years older than me. She has 2 kids, a husband who doesn't work, and a very specific talent, getting exactly what she wants by crying or throwing guilt grenades. And my parents Ricardo and Paula have always played favorites. I'm talking extreme favoritism. If Gabriella stubbed her toe, the whole house went into emergency mode. If I got pneumonia, drink some tea and don't bother your sister. But I never complained. I worked a full-time admin job, paid rent, helped around the house. I lived modestly, never asked for much. Still, Gabriella needed more, always more. And when her husband, Fernando, couldn't hold down a job longer than a sandwich lasts in our fridge, guess who they turned to? My grandfather, Don Arturo. He's 74, tough as nails, and not a fan of freeloaders. He always said I was the only one in the family who had any sense. So for my birthday, he did something outrageous. He gave me a house, not just any house. A fully furnished, 3-bedroom dream in a peaceful neighborhood. In my name. He drove 3 hours to hand me the keys himself. My hands shook as I opened that envelope. Keys, title, deed, all legit, and for the first time in my life, I saw pride in his eyes. "You deserve this," he said. "For being good, for working hard, for never asking." I should have known the moment I looked up and saw Gabriella's expression like someone had just handed me her dream life that this gift wouldn't last. Because the next day, my parents sat me down with the fakest smiles I'd ever seen and said words I'll never forget. "That house is too big for you. Your sister has kids. She deserves it more." And just like that, the pressure campaign began. Every day, every night. Guilt, manipulation, emotional blackmail. "You don't even have kids. She's your sister. You're being selfish." Until one night, broken and exhausted, I caved. "Fine," I said. "Gabriella can have the house." And they moved in, and I was out. The betrayal didn't stop with the house. 2 days after giving up the only real thing I ever had, I came home from work and found my key. Didn't work. I jiggled it, tried again. Nothing. The lock had been changed. I knocked. No one answered. I called my mother. Voicemail. I texted my father. Read. No reply. Tried Gabriella. Blocked. That's when the landlord finally picked up the phone and explained, oh, so casually, that my parents had terminated the lease on the apartment. Just like that. Gone. Rented to someone else. I stood on the sidewalk, staring at the closed door of the place I'd lived since childhood, backpack on one shoulder, wondering how I'd gone from birthday cake to homeless in less than a week. I slept in my car that night, parked right outside the house my grandfather gave me. My house. I pulled my jacket over my chest, curled into the driver's seat, and closed my eyes as the lights inside turned off one by one. My sister's silhouette passed behind the curtains. My father's voice echoed faintly through the walls. Somewhere, a kid was crying. Probably Lucas. Or maybe it was me. I couldn't tell anymore. That was the first night, and then there were 5 months of them. I showered in gas station bathrooms, brushed my teeth with bottled water, ate cheap microwave meals, went to work every day like nothing was wrong. My coworkers never noticed. No one ever asked. Maybe they thought I liked eating lunch alone in my car. Maybe I was just that good at pretending I wasn't unraveling. And every night, I returned to that curb, parked in front of the house that used to be mine, watched their porch light flick on like a slap to the face, saw toys scatter the lawn, heard laughter from inside, and sat there alone, wondering if maybe they were right. Maybe I didn't deserve a house, or space, or peace. Until one Saturday morning at 6 a.m., I woke up to a tapping on my window. I wiped the fog from the glass. It was my grandfather, Don Arturo, standing outside my car in his coat, his face pale, his expression unreadable. I opened the door, shame burning my throat. He looked at me, really looked at the blankets in the back seat, the fast food wrappers, my sunken cheeks, the bags under my eyes. "Son," he said, his voice cracking, "what the hell are you doing sleeping in your car?" I couldn't speak. I just started crying, and then the front door opened, and my mother stepped outside in her bathrobe. She smiled when she saw him. "Dad, what a surprise. We didn't know you were coming." He didn't even blink. He pointed at me, then at the house, and asked in a voice so cold, it made the morning air shiver, "What happened to the house I gave my grandson?" My mother froze mid-step. You could see the gears turning, scrambling to spin this disaster into something palatable. But my grandfather didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there, watching her, like a man who already knew the answer and was giving her one last chance to tell the truth. "Well," she started, her smile twitching, "it's just that. We thought Gabriela has children, and Masha's is still young. He doesn't have a family, he doesn't. We took the house from him," she finally admitted, voice cracking, "and gave it to Gabriela because she needed it more." Silence. Complete, deafening silence. And then my grandfather did something I'd never seen in my life. He took out his phone, dialed a number, and said calmly, "Need a patrol car at this address. There are people illegally occupying a property that belongs to me and my grandson." "Yes." Immediately my mother's face went white. "You're calling the police?" she shrieked. "Are you insane? The children live here. Children shouldn't be living in a stolen house," he thundered, his voice booming across the yard like a war drum. "Get out, all of you, now." She tried to block him at the door. He shoved her aside like a gust of wind. Inside, all hell broke loose. Gabriela screamed. Fernando yelled something about respect. My father tried to reason, but my grandfather wasn't hearing it. He stormed from room to room, shouting, "This house belongs to Masha's. I paid for it. I gave it to him, not you." The kids cried. Gabriela sobbed. Fernando cursed. My mother begged. And then the police arrived. 2 officers in a patrol car. Calm, professional. My grandfather met them at the door, handed over the original documents, title, deed, all in my name and his. They reviewed everything, then turned to my family and said, "You have 1 hour to pack your essentials and vacate the premises." My mother collapsed onto the couch, pleading, "Please, Dad, don't do this. The children need a roof over their heads. The children," my grandfather said icily, "need parents who work, not a stolen house." My father tried a softer approach. "It was a misunderstanding." "No," my grandfather snapped. "Leaving your son homeless so your daughter could live in luxury is not a misunderstanding. It's disgraceful." Gabriela tried the tears. "You don't understand. Masha's agreed to give it to us." He looked at me. I shook my head. "They wore me down," I whispered. "I didn't want to. I couldn't take it anymore." He nodded once, then turned back to the police. "Proceed." 10 minutes later, the countdown began. My family scrambled, packing, crying, arguing, begging. I just stood in the yard with my grandfather, his arm around my shoulder, watching the chaos unfold inside the house that had finally come back to me. 1 hour, the officer repeated. "And then you're out." Exactly 1 hour later, the front yard looked like a clearance sale at a thrift store. Suitcases, trash bags, diaper boxes, a cracked laundry basket full of Gabriela's shoes. My family stood on the sidewalk, eyes puffy, lips tight, surrounded by their own mess. Gabriela was in full meltdown mode, mascara streaking down her cheeks, still clutching a broken hanger like it might help her negotiate. Fernando stood beside her in stone-faced silence, jaw clenched like a man preparing for war, but with no army behind him. My parents Paula and Ricardo looked stunned, like they couldn't quite believe this was actually happening to them. My mother tried one last time, her voice trembling as she turned to my grandfather with the final plea. "Dad, please, just don't cut off the support. The kids, they still need to eat." And that's when he looked at her with an expression we'll never forget. Not anger, not even disappointment. It was colder than both, like a door being slammed shut after a long, ugly winter. "There will be no more money," he said. Not a cent. Not for you. Not for Gabriella. Not for anyone. The house is returned. My grandson is restored. The rest of you? Figure it out, Gabriella sobbed. What about the children? He didn't flinch. Your children, he said, pointing at her and Fernando, are your responsibility. Get jobs. Live within your means. Like Masha's has every single day, without help. Fernando finally snapped. You can't just abandon your family. I'm not abandoning anyone, he said. I'm removing myself from a toxic environment that steals from its own. Masha's is my family. The rest of you are just people I share blood with. Even my father, who had said little during the chaos, looked like someone had punched him in the chest. You're choosing him over the rest of us? He asked quietly. No, grandfather replied. You made the choice when you betrayed him. Then, just like that, he turned to me. Come, Mijo, he said softly. Let's go home. We walked past the crowd of my former family and stepped into the house. My house. For the first time, it didn't feel like a dream. It felt real. The air felt different, like I could finally breathe. I closed the door behind us. The lock clicked. Silence. And then I cried. I cried like a kid. I cried like a man. I cried for all the nights in the car, for the betrayal, the humiliation, the shame. I cried for the version of me that thought kindness meant surrender, and for the part of me that had finally said no. You weren't weak, my grandfather said, holding me like he had when I was 5. You were kind. They mistook that for weakness, but no more, and I believed him. That night, I slept in a real bed for the first time in 5 months. The lights were off. The house was quiet, and for the first time in a long time, I felt safe. The next few weeks were strange, not bad, just quiet, like I'd stepped out of a hurricane and now I was standing in the aftermath, blinking at blue skies. Every morning, I made coffee in my own kitchen, sat at my own table, took showers in a bathroom that didn't require a gas station key, and every time I opened a drawer, or turned a light on, or stretched out in bed without feeling my knees hit the car door, I felt this jolt of disbelief. This is mine. All of this is mine. The garden had gone wild since Gabriella moved in. Patches of weeds, dead flowers. I didn't mind. I spent a weekend out there with my hands in the soil, reclaiming every inch like it owed me money. It was therapeutic. I pulled roots like I was pulling names out of my chest. Gabriella, Fernando, Paula, Ricardo, gone. Inside, I started making the house feel like me. Took down Gabriella's tacky, laugh, love signs. Replaced them with old framed travel posters I found at a thrift store. Put up some bookshelves. Bought real groceries, not just discount ramen and crackers. Invited one of my coworkers over to watch a movie. Nothing big, just popcorn and quiet conversation. But for once, I wasn't embarrassed to have someone see where I lived. I didn't tell people the full story, only that I'd finally moved into my own place. They smiled, nodded. No one knew I used to sleep outside this very window, in the cold, listening to my stolen home breathe without me. My family? They tried .t first. It was texts. Masha's, please. We made a mistake. Your sister is suffering. Your parents miss you. The kids miss you. The kids are hungry. I didn't reply. I read them all. I just didn't reply. Then came a long message from my mother. She said they were willing to apologize, but that I was being cruel by cutting them off completely. You're not this kind of person, she wrote. You were always so forgiving. And that's when something inside me shifted again. Because she was right. I had always been forgiving, too forgiving, and they'd weaponized that. They'd used my silence, my kindness, my unwillingness to fight, as permission. So this time, I replied. Not this time. For years, I helped you. I gave you what little I had. And when I finally received something of my own, something earned, not begged for, you took it from me. You left me on the street. Now, you can figure it out. Like I had to. Goodbye. And then I blocked every number. No rage. No revenge. Just peace. My grandfather visited again a week later. Brought a small cactus for the kitchen window. Low maintenance, he said. Like you. We laughed. Over coffee, he asked. How do you feel now? I thought for a moment, then answered honestly. Free. He smiled. And in that moment, I swear, he looked younger. Like he'd been carrying their disappointment too, and had finally set it down. Freedom is a strange thing. At first, it feels like nothing. No parade, no fireworks, no dramatic soundtrack swelling in the background, just space. Quiet, steady space where chaos used to live. I started sleeping better. My appetite came back. I laughed more. Real laughs, the kind that shake loose your ribs. It wasn't just the house. It was the absence of tension, of guilt, of that constant voice in the back of my head saying, "You owe them." I didn't owe them anything anymore. Still, there were moments when doubt crept in, when I'd sit alone on the couch and remember Emma's tiny voice calling me, "Tio Madi," or the way Lucas used to fall asleep against my chest during cartoons. They were just kids. They didn't ask for any of this. But then I'd remember the night I came home and found my key no longer worked. Remember standing on that sidewalk, humiliated, betrayed, locked out of everything I had once called mine. And I'd remember who put those kids in that position. It wasn't me. It was the adults who chose entitlement over effort, manipulation over honesty, control over love. So I didn't reach out. I moved forward. I started small, bought a bike, rode around the neighborhood at sunset like a teenager discovering summer again. I picked up new habits, reading before bed, cooking actual meals, even trying yoga once and never again. I'll spare you the details. The biggest change? I started letting people in, not just into my house, into me. My guard had been so high for so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like to have a conversation where I wasn't calculating how to stay invisible. One night, a girl from work, Alina, came over. We'd always gotten along, but I'd kept my distance. That night, I didn't. We cooked spaghetti badly. She accidentally dumped a whole tablespoon of salt into the sauce and tried to pretend it was artisanal. We laughed so hard we cried. We ate it anyway. Later, we sat in the backyard under the string lights my grandfather helped me put up. She looked around, then at me. "This place feels peaceful." I nodded. "It didn't always. You seem different lately," she said softly. "Lighter." "I feel different," I admitted. "Like I finally stopped carrying someone else's story." She didn't ask for details. She just squeezed my hand, and that meant more than any apology ever could. Meanwhile, Gabriella and my parents faded into the background. I heard through a mutual neighbor that they'd moved into a cramped rental outside the city. No more nanny, no more luxury, just reality. Part of me wondered if they resented me, or if, in their own way, they finally understood what they'd done. But I didn't care. Their silence was my peace offering. I took it, and I kept going, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I was looking ahead. About 2 months after the house was returned to me, I did something I hadn't done in years. I invited people over, not coworkers, not casual friends, actual people I cared about. My best friend from high school, Matteo, a few kind neighbors who used to smile at me even when I was parked outside like a ghost, even Alina, who'd since become a regular visitor not just to the house, but to my life. We had a small barbecue in the backyard, string lights, cheap burgers, laughs that lasted past midnight. For the first time, I wasn't the quiet one in the corner. I wasn't second to anyone. I wasn't hiding. I was home. After everyone left and the backyard quieted down, Alina stayed behind to help me clean up. At one point, she stopped, looked at me seriously, and said, "You're building something here, Mashes. Something real." And that stuck with me, because that's what I'd never been allowed to do before, build something of my own. I spent so many years playing a role in someone else's play. Supporting cast in the Gabriella show, The Quiet Son, the backup plan, the easy yes. But now, every lamp I turned on, every floor I swept, every shelf I installed, it was mine. Not because someone gave me permission, but because I had taken my life back. That realization made me braver. I finally updated my grandfather's name on the deed, removing his and keeping mine. He cried a little when I told him, said it was time, that I'd earned it twice. Once when he gave it to me, and again when I took it back. He still visits every Sunday. We sit on the patio, drink coffee, and talk about everything and nothing. Sometimes we talk about my parents, how my mother tried calling him on Christmas, how Gabriella sent a birthday card for the first time in years. He never responds. "They still don't get it," he said once. They think forgiveness is just another thing they're owed. I asked him if he thought people could change. He looked at me long and hard. Then he said, only if they want to, and only if they're willing to lose what they took for granted. I never heard from Gabriella again. I think she's too proud, or maybe too ashamed. My parents? Occasionally they try. A card here, an email there, but there's no acknowledgement, no apology, just emotional fishing hooks wrapped in guilt. I don't bite, because I've learned something important. When people show you who they are, believe them, and when they show you what they'll do to you when they think you're too soft to fight back, you never forget. That's not bitterness. That's memory. That's survival. And now, when I walk through my house, my clean, quiet, joyful house, I don't think about what they took. I think about what I reclaimed, and that's more powerful than anything they'll ever understand. It's been nearly a year since that morning in the car, since my grandfather knocked on the window and changed everything. Sometimes I still wake up expecting to see the roof of my old sedan above me, my jacket clutched tight around my chest. But then I hear the soft creak of my ceiling fan, the rustle of real bedsheets, the morning birds outside my own window. I sit up, I breathe, and I remember I'm not that version of myself anymore. The version who kept his head down and said yes to everyone. The version who thought giving everything would make people love him more. The version who let others decide what he was worth. That Moshes is gone. And not because I became harder, but because I became clearer. I look in the mirror now, and I see a man who knows his limits, who honors his own space, who gives but not at the cost of himself. It's not revenge. It's not cruelty. It's balance. Gabriella and my parents faded out of my life like background noise after a power outage. No more texts. No more letters. Eventually, they stopped trying to guilt me and started resenting me quietly from afar. I'm okay with that. You know why? Because they don't get to live in my head rent-free anymore. I stopped checking their social media. I stopped asking mutual friends about them. I don't hate them, I just no longer carry them with me like a burden I have to drag into every room I enter. I carry myself now. I carry my routines, my joy, my Sunday mornings with my grandfather, my garden, which is thriving, my relationship with Alina, which has grown into something gentle and surprising. Last weekend, we painted the guest bedroom together, just because. She picked the color, I picked the music. We danced barefoot on a drop cloth and ordered bad pizza. It wasn't a milestone. It wasn't some dramatic turning point. It was just peace. And that's how I know I've healed. Because I'm not looking for apologies anymore. I'm not waiting for people to finally treat me right. I'm choosing myself. I still drive by that old apartment sometimes. The one they locked me out of. There's a new family living there now. A little girl plays on the steps with sidewalk chalk. I smile when I see her. I hope she never learns what it feels like to be cast aside by the people who claim to love you. But if she does, I hope she finds her way back to herself. Like I did. So here's what I'll leave you with. Kindness is not weakness. Boundaries are not cruelty. And if someone steals your peace, your space, your dignity, take it back. Even if your hands are shaking. Even if your voice cracks. Because no one else will fight for your worth if you don't. I live in my house now. It's quiet. It's safe. It's full of laughter and second chances. And every time I turn the key in the lock, I remember. They tried to break me, but all they did was free me.